Like a train, we all have a destination. And when it comes to that destination, we have tracks that keep us on courses to where we need to go. That trek is our values. The destination is our vision. Without the tracks, you can't get to your destination. Without the vision, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your gas, your resources, and your energy. And you're just lost in the abyss. I'm Andre, and this is the Speak Your Life podcast, where we talk about everything as it relates to education, careers, values, mentors, and anything to do with purpose. We do this one impactful conversation at a time, whether it's solo dolo with yours truly or our amazing guests to share stories, industry insights, encouraging words, and calls to action that can help you get closer to your why. Become a part of the Speak Your Life community by subscribing today to the podcast and following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your why is meaningless. What's up, guys? This is the Speak Your Life podcast, and I'm so happy that you are here today. And we are just excited that we are now on episode number 6. Wow, it's crazy. We're already past 5 and now number 6. First, before we even get started, first of all, I just want to acknowledge it was, a very tragic beginning of this week with the news about Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi, and the others that were on the helicopter, and it just, I respected his game, and I respected his work ethic, and how he was a family man. Not only was he a basketball player, but he was a great family man, and just he taught his death, and just this whole sad tragedy taught me, and I'm sure it taught a lot of other people something too, and it taught us the value of life, the value of the moments that we have with each other, our loved ones, our family, friends, and all the people that are in our lives for a reason. So hold near those people in your lives, and just always try to say how much you appreciate them. Always try to tell them how much you love them, because you never know when is the last time you'll ever say that. So I just wanted to start by saying that and acknowledging this terrible tragedy. So let's get started, guys. So maybe you are a business owner and experiencing high turnover, an employee that is looking for a new job, or maybe you're on the complete opposite ends of those spectrums. Well, either way, there's a great chance that whether you love or hate your job, that the common denominator is one thing, and that's values. So today we'll be talking about values. We will cover 4 things as it relates to values. 1, a unique definition for it. 2, 3 types of people in the world. 3, stats that show how values and purpose help the individual and organization for hiring and productivity or output. 4, last but not least, what a values board is and how you can create one today. All right, so there's a quote I want to share with you before we get into that definition. I want you to think about this. Our value is the sum of our values. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Our value is the sum of our values. I just want that to set the tone for everything, and just let that sink in. All right, I'm going to stop being overly dramatic now. So Jan Stassen, he was a TED speaker, and he had this video on the importance of values and why they matter. And so he defined values as situation-independent decision helpers. I just love that definition so much. It's like, in the movie Lion King, the hyenas are just saying Mufasa, 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 and I'm just like giving the shiver, just like that excitement, that energy. That's how I feel whenever I say situation-independent decision helpers. Like I can say that like so many times. But anyways, so that's how he defined values as, and I love that definition. Basically, it just means how values are anchored to our lives. They keep our ship steady. They keep us steady whenever things are rocking. Temptations to, go the easy route or cut corners are always hitting us left and right. So that's why I love that. And, when it comes to values, I'll share a quick story. When I was first applying to be a flight attendant, I remember going through the hiring process. And if you don't know this, the job for flight attendant is not hard. It's pretty easy, but how to get there is the hardest part. Over 100,000 applicants are a part of the whole applicant pool every single year for any major airline, at least in the US. So anyways, I was thankful to be a part of that and get invited to the face-to-face interview. And that was an accomplishment in itself. So as I get to this face-to-face interview, there's 50 people in the room. And I'm just looking around just to see what the vibe is like, how the people are, what's my competition looking like, And so I just noticed as I'm having conversations with people to my left and people to my right, I'm just getting to know everyone and just, see how, how everything's going to work out. And I get to learn more about the people. A lot of the people in the room seem to have had prior experience with regional airlines or other major carriers, and I'm sitting there like, man, how am I going to make it past these people? How am I going to make it past the people who have more experience than me? They have more skills than me. They have more knowledge than me. How am I going to make it past those people? But the thing was, when I got to interview, did the one-on-one interview, we vibed, we connected, and the thing that I found out after they offered me the job over the people who maybe had more experience than me was this one thing, and it had a lot to do with cultural fit, and it had a lot to do with values. That was the reason why they decided to pick me, and I was just so humbled because I was sitting there at the beginning I was like, wow, how did I make it here, and how do I compare to these other people? But anyways, there was mainly 4 values that this company, they really embody, and that's being friendly, working as a team, doing things the right way, and going above and beyond. And they just through, I guess, how I answered the questions or just how I interacted with people, they saw that I embodied these qualities and they really wanted me to be a part of their team. And so I was just so thankful, and here we are today. So there was this Forbes article that talked about why values matter. And it said, when hiring, employers should trade 90% talent for just 10% character. So 90% talent for just 10% character. Wow. Employers should look for character and right fit over technical skills to avoid an HR nightmare. Wow. Maybe you are one of those people. Maybe you have a business and you're experiencing an HR nightmare right now because you have that one person, or maybe you're an employee, working at a company, and you have that one person, that guy or girl that you just know that there's a misfit. They're an outlier, not in a good way. And it's good for everybody to be unique and different, but it's just, they stick out in the way that I mean is they're very smart, they're very talented, they're very intellectual, and they just don't get along with everybody else. They are always, having some kind of disagreements constantly, or they just don't mesh well. It's always a clash. And maybe you're experiencing that, or maybe you are one of those people, I don't know. But it is saying how the new thing now is how businesses, if they have not already, they should consider character more than just technical skills. Not to say that technical skills don't matter, because they do, because you can't just have a job and think you can keep it without having the skills. You got to have that. But it's easier to teach somebody who already has the right cultural fit the technical skills than it is to teach somebody who has the technical skills the values, the right values, at least that the company holds, that they want, you as the employee to share with them as the organization. So that's so important. That's so key. Why values are important. Why are they so important? I look at this like yin and yang. I look at values like yin and yang because you have vision, that's your yang, and you have values, that's your yin. And let me break it down. All right. So many of us know that yin and yang is an ancient Chinese not proverb, but it's just a concept, an ancient concept from the Chinese culture. And I didn't know this, but I'll explain if you don't know this. But basically, yin is the darker side, described as feminine, dark, hard, while yang is the light side, described as positive, bright, and masculine. But anyways, I'm gonna say that it makes sense because when I talked about how vision is like your yang and values are like your yin, it makes sense because having that vision, that destination in mind, it's full of positivity, it's full of brightness, it's the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And here we are, we're going through the darkness, we're going through this tunnel. That's our yin, because it's gritty, it's hard, it's difficult, it's mundane, and sometimes boring, laborious, but we keep going until we get to the end of the tunnel, because that light is our hope. It's not that the values in itself are our hope. It's the means to where we want to go. Because, it's just like, when you're going through something or going through a hard time, it's just like, why am I going through this? Why am I, putting in the right amount of work? Why am I doing the right thing? Because you know that it's gonna work out for something that you're reaching for. And so you're doing the right thing, not only because, you're going to get something out of it, but just also doing the right thing for the right thing, for the right reason is just also just good in itself. But again, I see it as the darkness, the dark tunnel that you go. It's the pathway in which you get to your vision. So that's your light. That's the yang you're trying to seek as you're going through your yin, your darkness, your dark tunnel, your pathway. So that's that. And there's 3 types of people in this world when it comes to values. So one, you have people who have vision and they have values. So they have where they want to go, and they have the pathway, the values of how to get there. And so those are the people who know where they're going. They don't have all the answers. They're not perfect, but they know, they have a sense of direction of where they want to go. And then they also have the right values. They have integrity and different things like that. And they know how to get there. They know how to navigate, and they know how to be anchored whenever they are challenged to cut corners, whenever they were challenged to fudge numbers and things like that. The second group of people we have are people with values. They have the right values. They're in the right tunnel, but they don't have the vision. They don't have the light at the end of the tunnel. So they're just kind of going through life. It's dark, it's dreary, it's mundane sometimes, but they have the right values. They're good-natured people, and I can totally relate to that because I once was one of those people. Recently, I just got out of that. I got out of that dark tunnel, and it's definitely invigorating. It's life-giving whenever you find your vision, whenever you find your calling, whenever you find your why and purpose. But we all have different seasons of life. We all go through different things. So maybe that's what you're going through right now, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. And then you have the last group of people where they are the people who have amazing ambition, amazing vision. They have all the wherewithal. They know like where they want to go. But the thing is, how they get there is the problem. You see, you have people like on the very extreme, like Hitler, who had vision of, he had great influence. We cannot deny that, even though he was completely and utterly evil. He had great influence, but the thing is how he did what he did, how he got there, the means was not good. He didn't have those good values to keep him anchored, and that's just a very extreme case. I would say one of the more relatable case is probably somebody like Elizabeth Holmes. And if you don't know who that is, you should definitely check out the documentary. And basically, to summarize the story, it's basically there's this girl. She's a 19-year-old, really intelligent, smart student who is at Stanford University. She has like 2 semesters and then she drops out and she goes to Silicon Valley to start this company called Theranos. And basically she is so obsessed with Steve Jobs, so much to the point where she studies him. She wears the turtleneck, and she also gets some of his employees from Apple to work under her on her board and things like that. But where things go wrong, she has this great vision for the future of how she can change healthcare for the betterment of mankind, and she has this great vision. And she has the ambition. There's no doubting that. But the problem was she didn't have the value. She didn't have those anchors that kept her from cutting corners or saying things that were not really true. That were actually false. And so people started to poke holes, within the company. People started to poke holes outside the company. There are people from there's a guy from, I can't remember if it was Wall Street Journal or New York Times, but anyways, he did an investigation. He worked with somebody in the company, and they started to slowly find out that there's this machine that they had that was called the Edison machine, and it was supposed to revolutionize how we draw blood samples, and you only needed a prick of blood to just be able to do all these tests. But that was not true, because that machine didn't actually work. When she was asked about it, she always diverted. She always looked to, try to change the conversation or just change how she worded things to cause confusion. And she did a great job of convincing people how, because she drew in $400 million of seed money and investment money. And basically the company, it went up into being worth at over $9 billion at one point. And she herself, Elizabeth Holmes, was, according to many magazines, was labeled as the youngest female self-made billionaire. I'll get into the whole concept of self-made. That's a whole nother episode. I really don't believe in that wholeheartedly. I believe you can be partly self-made, but not fully self-made. But anyways, that's besides the point. So she was, people were bombarding her with all these questions, and they started poking holes. They started to find out what she was and what the company was really about. And so when they started to ask questions and poke at her integrity, people would see that she lied about simple things like, for example, one of the employees talked about how she said she was leaving the office for the day, and then he walked past her office and he saw her working on the computer. It was like little stuff like that added up to bigger things too, because like I said, she had the vision, she had the ambition, but she just didn't have the right values to keep her in place to, to be full of integrity. Because there are a lot of companies out there that face challenges, and but at the same time, they are anchored in their values, and they stand still even when they're being challenged, and with the ability to cut corners. So man, that's a case that you don't want to be a part of. You don't want to be a part of that third group. And so I remember just speaking about vision and values and how they were so important. Coming together, yin and yang, they're inseparable in my opinion. And I remember just going to this vision board party earlier this month, and it was so life-giving, and just be able to be around such great people. And I remember just being there and making my vision board, and it was an awesome experience. But at the same time, like, I realized that my values board was really important too, to bring it all together. And so, again, like, if you got a chance to listen to the intro episode, I briefly talked about the analogy of the house and how that, our life is like a house, and we are to understand that the most important thing that is the foundation that holds our house up, that holds our life up. Because without that, we will be able, without it, we will be blown away with, going this way and that way with any type of temptation or any type of, thought to cut corners or just go the short route, the quick, the easy, the get rich quick schemes and all that stuff. So, having an anchor, having the foundation, your values, that's so important to holding your house up, to be able to withstand storms. And, there are a few stats I want to share with you guys as it relates to values. And LinkedIn did a survey, and they found that 73% of purpose-oriented members are satisfied with their jobs. 73%, compared to 64% who are not purpose-oriented. The same imperative study found that 58% of companies with a clearly articulated and understood purpose experienced a growth of plus 10%, compared to just 42% of companies that didn't prioritize purpose. So if the most successful organizations are out there, and which are made up of individual people like yourselves, then they need to maintain good value systems to be able to stay at the top, to stay successful. Who are we as individuals who are pursuing our calling, who are pursuing our purpose in our careers and things like that, education? Who are we not to have values? Who are we without values? And when it comes to successful companies with great value systems, one of the first companies I always think of is Chick-fil-A. Oh my gosh! Not only I'm a little biased, because just like Chick-fil-A, I'm born and bred in Atlanta, Georgia, But anyways, before, I just want to have a little side note. I just got to say, this might be a blasphemous comment and controversial, but I'm sorry, but that Popeye's chicken sandwich is a lot better than the Chick-fil-A sandwich. But that's just my opinion. And again, I also just believe that Chick-fil-A is a better, like, in my opinion, I like Chick-fil-A as a better corporation, just in general, about how they approach things, how they treat people, their employees, and the customer service is amazing and it's stellar, and it's just unmatched by many fast food restaurants out there. And so I remember just going there, talking to different employees, and I got a chance to talk to this one girl who was working, and basically this is what she told me about her experience as it relates to why she decided to work at Chick-fil-A and stay there compared to going somewhere else at any other restaurant. So here's what she had to say.
I really value Chick-fil-A's view on relationships with people and just the way that they pour into not only their team members but their guests. I really enjoy, I know you mentioned people looking for their why, and that's very big in Chick-fil-A, especially if you want to move up in the company. You need to find your why. You need to find what you're passionate about. Chick-fil-A is very big on, especially at the support center, which is our corporate office over on Buffington Road in Atlanta. They're very big on, if you want to work there, you need to find your why and what's going to fit good for you. They don't want to just stick you in a department where you're going to be sitting at a desk all day, not doing something you're going to enjoy. They want to put you in a department you're going to be passionate about. So that's why Chick-fil-A is constantly changing, constantly testing, and that's just part of the reason why we have the attitudes that we do. We really do enjoy our jobs.
All right, cool. So when it comes to your values, the first step is understanding internally and then manifesting them externally, ideally in writing, because there is something powerful that happens when we write things out and have external visual outside of our mere minds. And when it comes to the founding fathers, for example, constructing the Constitution, what would it have been? What kind of world would we have in the U.S. if we had, the founding fathers just said, hey, you know what? We're just going to live out these values and hope that everybody just follows suit. And we're not even going to write them down. We're just going to live them out and hoping and praying that people will carry those values out from generations to come. It would have been a very different America. And, not to get political or anything like that, but just, it would have been absolutely different. For better or for worse, I don't know. But it would have been just different. And just the fact that, writing those values, we still have the Constitution now, is still standing to this day, and it's one of the longest standing constitutions compared to any other country and stuff like that. So that's just something interesting to note. And so also, one of the things that helped me, and when it comes to values, or AKA the situation independent decision helpers, is what I wrote down as what I like to call the values board. And so what I did was, for those of you who are just listening on the podcast, I wrote it down. And you can't see this, but I'm going to describe it to you. So basically, I just printed out this paper, and it's this template of this house. And, I got my MTV crib, obviously, with the windows that I created, my modern windows, my really artsy modern door handles and all that stuff. Anyways, my artistic ability is popping. So here is the house. But at the bottom, the most important thing is the foundation and significance of placing my values and writing those down at the bottom was that it shows that my life, my house, it stands on these values. And that's the significance of why I placed them right here, obviously. And so, I wrote a few things down, and to give you an example of my values board, let's see. I always want to be mentally wealthy constantly, and just always look to just be increasing mentally. I also want to just constantly work harder. That's not really like a goal. That's just like an ongoing thing. So that's what makes it a value for me. That's what, it's situationally independent, and it's something that helps me makes my decisions. So I just basically broke down that definition, and you're gonna hear that so many times that it's gonna be embedded in your subconscious now. Situation independent decision helpers. So those are a few examples of what my values board looks like, and that's in this, and I believe it can really help you to understand and be anchored when you are faced with challenges, when you are faced with situations that will challenge you, that will tempt you to cut corners, that will tempt you to get out the easy way and not put in the time, not put in the work, because millennials, we got to work not only smarter, but we also got to work harder too. So, all right. So just to recap, guys, we as we close, we are just wanted to recap the four things we talked about. Number one, we looked at Jan Stassen's definition as situation-independent decision helpers. I'm going to say that one more time, situation-independent decision helpers. All right, cool. The second thing we talked about are the three types of people in this world. Those are people with vision and values. Those are people with values and no vision. And lastly, there are people with vision but no stable values. And again, that's just coming from my perspective. Again, that vision, when it comes to values, again, let me just say those are relative, but I'm just sharing from just my perspective. And so I just wanted to throw that out as a disclaimer. And then the third thing we talked about are stats that showed how values and purpose help the individual and organization for hiring and productivity or output. And the last thing we talked about are the values board and how you can create one today. So, all right, cool. So now we've come to the part of the show where we get to do the call to action. So we're going to play a game called the values game. All right. There's going to be 3 prizes given out. All right. 3 prizes. 1, the first Speak Your Life Instagram follower to DM me Chick-fil-A's core values gets a $6 Chick-fil-A gift card mailed to them. And, in honor of this being the 6th episode, you get a $6 Chick-fil-A gift card mailed to you. All right. And also a way to earn the same gift card for the first 2 people who tag us in or post on their story with us tagged in there about your picture, you and your picture that has your values board. Again, I repeat, you must be a follower of our social media to be able to qualify for this prize in this game that we're playing. So that is all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, whether you're on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave us a written review if you connected with today's message. Also, join the Speak Your Life community by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at SpeakYourLYFE, because life without your Y is meaningless. All right, guys, thank you again so much. Love you guys, and we will see you on the next episode. Hey guys, just a couple of things. One, I failed to mention that there will be a link for the Elizabeth Holmes video. I will try to include that at the bottom in the description. And also, when it comes to the call to action, I meant to say that you just need to write down 5 values, and I'll include the Pinterest link for you to download and print out a blank, template of a house. And that's about it. All right, thank you guys.